Rainwater dripped from the brim of Malik Carter's jacket. A delivery truck roared past, spraying a wave across his legs. He gripped his worn leather briefcase tighter and stepped toward the glass doors of the towering building. Security guard. Executive entrance only. You'll need to use the other side. Malik, I have a meeting on the 3rd floor. The guard didn't check a list. His eyes flicked to Malik's skin, then down to his shoes. Security guard. Name's not here. Service entrance is that way. A man passing on the sidewalk smirked. Bystander. Stay in your place, buddy. Malik's jaw tightened. Malik. It's okay. I've been told I don't belong before. From across the street, a sleek black car rolled to a stop. Victoria Hall stepped out, surrounded by a wall of umbrellas. Her gaze skimmed over Malik, pausing at his briefcase. Victoria, then maybe you know which door to use. Her voice was light, almost casual, but it landed like stone. Malik, I know exactly which one I came for. An aide leaned into her, whispering. Malik caught one word, unqualified. The tension held until a violent crash split the air. Glass rained down from the lobby windows. A woman's scream tore through the morning. Smoke curled upward into the rain. The guard froze. Passers-by backed away. Malik stepped forward. Victoria. Wait, where are you? Malik. Inside. He moved past the guard without a glance, the heat of the lobby already spilling into the street. In his chest, the thought pressed hard. I've been told to stand outside my whole life. Not today. Behind him, the city seemed to hold its breath. Clawed at Malik's throat the moment he stepped inside. The lobby lights flickered, half hidden by the haze. Somewhere in the chaos, a woman's voice cried out. Voice. Help! Please. He moved toward the sound, weaving past overturned chairs and scattered papers. The air was thick with the sting of burning plastic. A shape emerged from the smoke. A woman on the ground, ankle twisted, face streaked with ash. It was Victoria Hall. Their eyes met. Victoria. You, Malik. Save your breath. He crouched, lifting her carefully. She flinched at the pain, gripping his shoulder. Victoria. Why? Would you, Malik? Because your life matters. Even when you thought mine didn't. Her gaze faltered, but she said nothing. He pushed forward, shielding her from falling debris. The exit loomed ahead, but flames licked at the doorway. Malik spotted a side hall, its emergency lights glowing faintly. He carried her through, his breath ragged, his muscles straining. Outside, the street was chaos. Sirens, flashing lights, people pointing. The security guard stood frozen, staring. Malik lowered Victoria onto the curb, her knees trembling as she tried to stand. Paramedic. Sir, are you injured? Malik. I'm fine. She's the one you need. The cameras clicked, rapid, hungry. In every shot, Victoria's face was clear. Malik's was half-turned, blurred by the smoke. Victoria. Wait, your name. But he was already stepping back into the crowd, away from the microphones, away from the eyes that had looked through him only minutes before. Inside, the fire raged on. Outside, whispers had already started. That night, the city's news stations ran the same headline. Unknown man saves CEO. The footage looped over and over. Victoria Hall being carried through the smoke, but Malik's face stayed hidden in every frame. He watched it from the couch, Amara curled asleep against his side. Her small hand rested on his chest, steadying him more than she'd ever know. The room was quiet, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the faint voices from the TV. News anchor. Identity still unconfirmed. Malik's mind wandered backward to the firehouse locker room 10 years ago. His captain's voice. Carter, you've made some people very uncomfortable with your accusations. Then the cold paper in his hands. Termination. Official reason. Breach of protocol. Unofficial. Speaking up about the department's discriminatory hiring list. He'd taken other jobs since security, deliveries, night shifts. Anything that kept food on the table for Amara. Every time he stepped into an interview room, the same quick glance at his resume, the same polite smile fading when they reached the gaps in his record. 2 years ago, at a public hearing, he'd stood at a microphone in a crowded council hall, warning against a redevelopment plan that would strip hundreds from their homes. Victoria Hawley, at the head of the table, had met his words with a single raised eyebrow and a dismissive shake of her head. Now, she owed him her life. Malik muted the TV. He studied Amara's sleeping face, the gentle rise and fall of her breath. Didn't save her for thanks, he thought. But maybe this is where the fight changes. Somewhere in the city, someone had recognized him. It was only a matter of time before his phone rang out by morning. Malik's phone was vibrating against the kitchen counter. Unknown numbers. Unfamiliar area codes. He ignored them all, pouring cereal for Amara, while the radio mumbled in the background. At 8:15, a knock rattled the door. Through the peephole, he saw a young woman holding a microphone, a cameraman behind her. Reporter, Mr. Carter? We just need a moment. Malik, wrong house. He shut the door, but her voice rose through the wood. Reporter, we have confirmation you were the man who carried Victoria Hawley from the fire yesterday. Silence. Malik's grip tightened on the doorknob. Malik, I'm not giving interviews. She? Hesitated. Reporter, don't you think the public should know that the same man she called unqualified in a board meeting saved her life? The words cut deeper than he let on. He opened the door just enough to see her eyes, eager, almost hungry. Malik, the fire's over. That's all they need to know. He closed it again, locking the bolt. Through the blinds, he saw the van pull away. But he knew this wasn't over. By noon, social media had pieced the story together. A shaky cell phone video showed him emerging from the smoke, Victoria's arm hooked over his shoulder. Comments flooded in, some praising him, others twisting the moment into something ugly. At her company's headquarters, Victoria's PR team crafted a statement about shared community strength. Not one line mentioned his name. Malik sat at the table, staring at his silent phone. The air in the room felt heavier now. They can't erase me this time, he thought. Not when the city's watching. Somewhere deep down, he knew this was just the first move. 2 days later, Malik's name still hadn't appeared in any official press release. The rescue was now branded as a testament to the city's unity. Every sentence dripped with polished vagueness. At the corner store, an old friend slid him a folded newspaper. Friend, they're erasing you, Malik, right out in the open. He scanned the front page, a full-color photo of Victoria shaking hands with the fire chief. The caption called her a symbol of resilience. Malik, guess I wasn't photogenic enough. The friend's voice lowered. Friend, or you, don't fit the picture they want. Later that afternoon, Malik's phone buzzed again. This time, the number was familiar. City Development Office. Caller, Mr. Carter, we'd like to thank you for your bravery. The mayor is considering a small recognition ceremony. Malik, small. Caller, informal. No press, of course. Ms. Hawley will be there to express her gratitude. Malik, gratitude doesn't erase what she's done to my community. Silence on the other end. Then a quick, polite, caller, will take that under advisement. The line went dead. By evening, Malik noticed a black SUV parked across from his apartment. Inside, 2 men in suits watched the building. They didn't hide it. Amara came into the kitchen, holding a drawing. Amara, is that car here to fix something? Malik, maybe. But his gut told him otherwise. That night, as the rain started again, Malik sat by the window. In the distance, the SUV's headlights blinked once before it rolled away. They want this quiet, he thought. And quiet is exactly what I won't give them. The council chamber smelled faintly of old paper and coffee. Rows of reporters filled the benches, cameras already pointed toward the long table at the front. Malik sat there, hands folded, eyes fixed on the polished wood in front of him. Across the room, Victoria Howell entered in a navy suit, her expression carefully blank. She took her seat, avoiding his gaze. The council chair cleared his throat. "Chair. Mr. Carter, you may begin." Malik stood, sliding a folder across the table. "Malik, inside are 32 eviction notices. Everyone signed off by Howley Development. Everyone tied to the so-called revitalization plan." A murmur spread through the room. Lawyer for Victoria. "Objection. This is irrelevant to the incident in question." "Malik, it's exactly relevant. You can't separate the life I saved from the lives her company destroyed." The lawyer shifted, but the chair nodded for him to continue. "Malik, these families didn't make the news. They didn't get statements about unity. They got their keys taken." A reporter in the back whispered, pen scratching furiously. "Victoria's." A's dropped to the table. Her knuckles whitened against her folder. "Council member, and why should we take your claims seriously?" Malik didn't raise his voice. "Malik, because you already trusted me with your CEO's life." Silence. The weight of it pressed against the walls. Malik took his seat. Cameras clicked. Across the table, Victoria's mask slipped for a fraction of a second, a flicker of something brittle in her eyes. She's not untouchable anymore, he thought. And now the city knows it. The courtroom felt different now, colder, heavier, as though every pane of glass and marble column had taken sides. Jasmine Crockett sat at the center of it, her pen poised above her legal pad, but unmoving. For hours she had cut through testimony like a scalpel through gauze, precise and uncheckable. But now something had shifted. It wasn't the facts. Those were still on her side. It was the air. The jury no longer leaned forward. They leaned back, arms folded. Reporters in the gallery whispered with the glee of wolves, sensing a limp in the herd. Across the aisle, the opposing counsel, Robert Hensley, noticed it too. His smirk was small but dangerous. Hensley, low, to his co-counsel. "She's losing them. Look at her eyes." Co-counsel, overconfidence? Hensley, no doubt. A single witness, a retired aide, had managed to sow just enough uncertainty to shake the room's rhythm. The aide's tone had been measured, calm, almost paternal. He spoke not in accusations, but in soft recollections, laced with just enough ambiguity to cloud the truth. And as he stepped down, Jasmine knew they were not leaving the jury with facts. They were leaving them with feelings. And feelings were dangerous things. Jasmine, whispering to her assistant. "They're buying his sincerity. That's the problem." Assistant, "We can recover." Jasmine, shaking her head slightly. "Not if they believe him before they believe me." Her mind spun, a dangerous place for a trial lawyer mid-proceeding. The questions came, fast and unbidden. Was I too harsh and cross? Did I leave a thread hanging? Did I misread the room? 4. The first time in this trial, she felt a seed of self-doubt crack open. And like all dangerous seeds, it grew quickly. In the press section, a journalist tapped out a quick headline on his phone. "Crockett's iron nerves show first signs of fracture." The damage wasn't in the evidence. It was in perception. And perception, in a courtroom as in politics, could become reality if left unchecked. The courtroom was suffocating in its silence. Every creak of the wooden benches amplified like a gunshot. Trump sat rigid, his jaw clenched. the mask of certainty that had carried him through countless battles beginning to crack. He adjusted his tie, his eyes darting toward the jury, but their faces were unreadable stone, cold and distant. Jasmine. Crockett's gaze never left him. She stood at the lectern, her tone calm, but each word seemed designed to chip away at the very armor he wore. "Mr. Trump," she began, her voice low yet cutting through the air, "do you remember the moment you realized the truth would no longer bend for you?" He forced a laugh, but it came out hollow. "I have no idea what you mean." Her brow arched ever so slightly. "No? Then explain why every single record, every scrap of evidence, tells a story you can't control." The gallery leaned forward. Trump's hands tightened on the table, his knuckles pale. For a fleeting second, he opened his mouth, then shut it again, the weight of silence pressing against him. "You've made a career out of confidence," she continued. "But today, I see hesitation. I see fear." "I'm not afraid of you," he snapped, the edge in his voice betraying him. "You're not afraid of me," she replied softly. "You're afraid of them hearing the truth." Her hand gestured. To the jury. The words landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading through the room. Trump's eyes darted once more to the jurors, but instead of loyalty, all he saw was the slow erosion of belief. In that moment, his shoulders sagged, just slightly, but enough for everyone to notice. The man who had always filled the room with unshakable bravado suddenly seemed smaller, and Crockett, sensing the shift, stepped back without another word, letting the silence finish what she had started. The hush in the courtroom felt heavier than the wood and stone around it. Jasmine's eyes narrowed, her voice steady but tinged with a blade's edge. "Mr. Trump, you claimed certainty. Yet now your expert hesitates. Why?" Across the aisle, Trump's posture stiffened. His lawyer shifted in his seat, glancing at the forensic analyst, whose face had drained of color. A bead of sweat slid from the analyst's temple, tracing the fault line of his unease. The gallery leaned forward, straining for each word. Camera zoomed in on the analyst's trembling hands as he adjusted his glasses. There appeared to be inconsistencies, he stammered, barely above a whisper. "Inconsistencies?" Jasmine repeated, letting the word hang in the air long enough for it to become a verdict in itself. "Or outright contradictions?" Trump shot a glare at the witness. "Stand," but the analyst avoided his eyes entirely. The silence between their breaths was more telling than any transcript could capture. Even the reporters, seasoned in courtroom theater, seemed unsure if they were witnessing cross-examination or collapse. Jasmine didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. "Your certainty," she said slowly, "is unraveling. And everyone here can see it." Somewhere in the back, the sound of a pen snapping echoed, as though the tension had finally found a breaking point. "Do you want me to continue straight into scene 8 without stopping?" The room felt like it had stopped breathing. Every rustle of paper, every shifting chair, became amplified against the stillness. The fluorescent lights cast a sterile glow over the oak tables, but somehow it seemed to spotlight only two people, Jasmine. And she didn't rush. She let the silence stretch until it became its own kind of pressure, a slow tightening around everyone's chest. Then, with deliberate care, she reached into her folder and drew out a single sheet of paper. The edges curled slightly, the ink bold and unforgiving. She held it up not towards the judge, not towards the jury, but directly in Musk's line of sight. His eyes locked onto it instantly. For a brief second, something flickered there, recognition, maybe fear, but buried under layers of control. He shifted in his chair, his hand sliding across the table as if to ground himself. Jasmine took a single step forward. "This," she said, her voice low, resonant, cutting straight through the stagnant air, "is your signature, isn't it?" The question didn't sound like a question. It was a statement wearing the clothes of one. Musk's lips parted, but no words came. His lawyers leaned in, whispering rapid-fire counsel, but his focus didn't break from that page. The cameras drank in every micro-expression and eyebrow twitch, the tightening of his jaw, the faint swallow in his throat. "You know it is," Jasmine continued, softer now, almost coaxing, "and so does everyone watching." From the back row, a reporter's pen stopped mid-sentence. The sound of writing was replaced by a quiet, collective inhale. A courtroom officer glanced up at the gallery, scanning faces, but the crowd was locked in place, as if afraid to move and miss what came next. Musk finally drew in a slow breath. I'd need to review." "No," Jasmine cut in gently, but firmly. "You don't, because you've seen this before. You signed it." She lowered the page just enough for the jury to glimpse the bold scrawl at the bottom dot. The reaction was instant. A murmur rippled through the gallery, cameras clicking in staccato bursts. The judge's gavel tapped once for order, but the tension didn't dissolve it, just condensed. Sharper, heavier. Somewhere outside, the trial was already trending. Live stream chat windows flooded with comments, shock, disbelief, vindication. Each message another chisel blow against the wall Musk had built around himself. In the stillness that followed, Jasmine's eyes never left his. And for the first time that day, he looked away. The lights in the room seemed dimmer now, not because the bulbs had lost power, but because the air itself felt heavier. Every eye in the hall shifted toward the center table, where the man who had once spoken with certainty now hesitated. His hands, once steady, trembled almost imperceptibly as he shuffled his papers. The murmurs began in pockets small, cautious whispers, until they swelled into a soft, restless tide of voices. People leaned closer to one another, trading uneasy glances. Some wrote quick notes. Others simply folded their arms, watching with a mixture of doubt and disappointment. He cleared his throat. Once, twice, the sound barely reached the back of the room. For the first time since the day had begun, he avoided meeting anyone's gaze. His arguments, which earlier had landed like iron, now fell like ash scattered, weightless, dissolving before they touched the ground. From the far corner, someone exhaled sharply, almost a scoff. The ripple it caused was instant. A woman in the second row raised an eyebrow. A young man smirked at his neighbor. The authority he had carried into this room was bleeding out with every pause, every stumble. He tried to speak again, but the words came fractured, their meaning eroded by hesitation. The silence that followed was not a void, it was judgment, palpable and suffocating. In that silence, his opponents didn't need to attack. The collapse was happening from within. The moment stretched unbearably long before he finally lowered his eyes to the desk, his pen tapping a slow, uneven rhythm. Somewhere deep down, he knew this wasn't just a bad day. This was the moment people would remember as the turning point. The day the room stopped believing him. The CEO's hands trembled as she reached for the glass of water, but even that small act seemed to betray her. The rim rattled against her teeth. Whispers rippled through the room, sharp and cutting, like the hiss of a snake in the grass. She could feel the weight of every gaze pressing down on her. Investors, board members, journalists, all silently, questioning whether she was still the leader they believed in. In the back, the single dad sat in silence, his jaw set, his eyes locked on her. He'd seen this before, the moment a person's armor cracked and the vultures began to circle. He could almost feel her heart pounding from where he sat. She was a fighter, but right now she was drowning, and no one was moving to save her. Not yet. The silence became unbearable. Cameras clicked like distant gunfire, each flash freezing her in a moment she wished she could escape. One investor leaned. to whisper in another's ear, and the faint smirk that followed sliced her composure in half. She gripped the edge of the podium, her knuckles whitening, as though sheer force could keep her from collapsing. Then, a voice, steady, deep, and impossibly calm, cut through the tension. "Madam Chair, if I may?" All heads turned toward the back of the room. The single dad stood there, hands in his pockets, the faintest shadow of defiance in his eyes. He hadn't been invited to speak. He wasn't even supposed to be here. But in that moment, he looked like the only person in the building who wasn't afraid. The CEO's breath caught. She knew that voice. It was the same one that had once pulled her back from a place she didn't think she'd return from. The same voice that years ago had told her she was worth saving. And now it was here again. A murmur rippled through the room as the board members shifted uncomfortably, unsure whether to silence him or let him speak. The chairman's brow furrowed, but the single dad didn't wait for permission. "She doesn't deserve this," he began, his voice carrying an unshakable conviction that demanded the room's attention. "You're all sitting here pretending, like her mistakes define her, but none of you have the courage to talk about the nights she stayed in this office until it was empty, fighting to keep this company alive while the rest of you slept." The CEO's eyes widened, her pulse quickening. His words weren't defensive. They were surgical, cutting straight through the unspoken cruelty in the room. "She's not perfect," he continued, pacing slowly, "but I've seen her at her worst. And I've seen her fight her way back, when no one else believed she could. You don't have to like her. You don't even have to trust her. But you will not stand here and pretend she hasn't earned every damn inch she's taken." Silence followed, not the awkward kind, but the kind that comes when truth has been spoken so plainly that no one dares to breathe. Her hands trembled, but this time it wasn't from fear. The courtroom air had grown heavier, as if every word uttered so far had seeped into the walls, weighing them down. He sat there, shoulders hunched, eyes darting toward the jury box, trying to read the thoughts behind their guarded expressions. His lawyer whispered something urgent in his ear, but the man barely reacted. His focus was locked on the witness stand, where the quiet testimony was cutting deeper than any shout. A single photo was slid across the table toward him. One he never expected would surface. His jaw clenched. His fingers twitched as though resisting the urge to tear it in half. The jurors leaned forward slightly, sensing the tremor in his composure. Across the aisle, the prosecutor didn't rush, letting the silence magnify the impact in that stillness. The man felt the floor beneath him shift, not physically, but in the terrifying realization that his version of events was no longer the only one the room would believe.